Hi everybody, my name's Sam. I am co-founder and CEO at Gipsy Hill Brewery. We're London's largest independent brewery, one of the UK's only employee-owned breweries, and make some of the highest rated beers that there are in London. So that's us, and I'm here today to talk about product USP. But first, the most generic marketing slide you've ever seen. Strategy, marketing, and product. These are the pillars with which one builds a business. Your strategy defines where you go. Your marketing builds the brand. Today, it's mainly about product and their USPs. How you can differentiate who you are and what you're doing via product. So what exactly is the USP, the unique selling point? It's when products that are in the same category are demonstrably different. I put up a couple of examples. You'll get a feel for who I am because these are some of my favorite brands. Patagonia, demonstrably more environmental than your average clothing company. Finisterre is one of the only brands I wear. I'm pretty boring with this stuff, but they're a great brand. It's hard wearing. Hyatt, free jean repair for life, a demonstrable USP. All of my jeans wear out there. They're all been repaired by Hyatt now at least 3 times. It's fantastic. Allbirds are the comfiest shoes in the market by a considerable distance. And then Who Gives a Crap is great toilet paper that is made of different stuff. These are all demonstrable USPs. So what exactly happens with USP? This is a standard S-curve. It is a product life cycle. It's a business life cycle. It's an industry life cycle. They start off slow, they go through rampant growth, and then they tail off. Now, this applies to products too. If you don't innovate, then you end up like this. All products will end up like this, in the flat, plateaued part of the curve. And the only thing that differentiates you from your competition will be marketing spend. And with marketing, you can drive growth even in that plateau. We saw a great example earlier today from the tea guys, Yorkshire Tea, Dom presenting. Not just a market that's plateaued, a market that's in decline, and yet they're growing phenomenally with great marketing. This is what happens with no innovation. With innovation, what ends up happening is you can stack these S-curves and you keep on growing all the way through them. So what we're trying to think about is how can we keep on stacking innovation to create our product USP. Now, Gipsy Hill is a 10-year-old brand, which makes us pretty old in craft beer. There are some around that are older than us, but not loads at this stage. So we've been making craft beer, high quality, really high ingredients, great beer now for a decade. I would say that craft beer's story has followed a bit of an S-curve. These dates along the bottom might be too small for you to see, but in the mid-2010s is really when it started. And then it's reached its steep point around 2017, and it's sort of leveled off. And right now, craft beer is looking at about 15% growth year on year. And if you're investing in a lot of marketing, you can be at the high end of that. And if you're not doing any marketing, then the chances are your product USP is gone because it's now a played out story, and you're in some quite low flat growth. So what have you got to do? Create genuine, real product USP to try and differentiate yourself from the market. So, to say all of that, I humbly submit the pint reinvented. For the last 2 years, Gipsy Hill's been working hard on a product, and it's resulted in what I think is one of the beers that I'm most proud of out of all the 300 we've made in the last 10 years. It is sustainable beer. So 2 years ago, I met the guys from Wild Farms, who have been talked about a little bit in this thing already. We rebuilt our supply chain to incorporate Wild Farm barley into our production methods. Wild Farms grow regenerative barley, which means that instead of sucking all of the goodness out of the soil and growing purely using fertilizers, they actually heal the soil, create biodiversity, and as a result, sequester carbon. The impact of using their barleys on our beers has been remarkable. Every pint poured from a keg sequesters as much CO2 as a tree does in a day. So this is a really big difference versus the industry standard pint. I think everyone was given a can of beer at the beginning of this session. If you haven't opened it yet, now's a nice time to. I'm opening mine. This is what we've been working on, and we released these beers about a year ago to reasonable fanfare, some decent PR, and I think for good reason, because this is what this looks like. This is what the difference between a standard pint of beer's footprint looks like and our pint of beer. Gipsy Hill's got minus 30 grams of CO2e per pint, and a regular beer, a regular lager, has got about 350 grams of CO2e per pint. The difference between those two is 10 trees worth of work every pint, right? 10 trees. That means if a pub is serving 1,000 pints in a day, it's 10,000 trees worth of work per day. That is the difference in the carbon footprint serving our beer and their beer. It's honestly remarkable. And the result is same, or I would humbly submit, a better flavored pint for the same price, because we've been able to create it using some other innovations at the same cost as our old beers, and a much lower footprint. Actual product USP. Are we able to stack our S-curves and keep growing? Well, it turns out that the consumers responded to this in a different way to what we were expecting, because the launch was not very fucking well. Good. So when we launched last July, as all things, as a CEO would hope for all the products it releases, virality, non-stop demands, we're going to be producing more than we possibly can. Instead, it was slower. Does anyone care? Did our consumers care? Not that much. It was disappointing. However, we weirdly are not a direct-to-consumer brand. We're a B2B brand. And did our customers care? Yes, they did. In fact, they cared loads. It just takes a while to market yourself to customers. So this graph shows the difference in volume between the second half of last year and the first half of this year. We grew in our volumes of sustainable beer by 440%, which is remarkable. It's a lot of growth, and it shows that marketing to your customers is different to those consumers. So that gets me thinking about what we need to do. Who are we as a brand? Are we the same old brand, or are we an eco brand? With all of these things, we have been as a business trying to think through, well, what's our positioning with this change, with this new product? Are we an eco brand, or are we the Gipsy Hill that everyone has been known for the last 10 years? We can't be an eco brand. We are not an eco brand. We are just Gipsy Hill Brewery making high quality beers from South London, who happens to also make the most sustainable beers on the planet. So actually, what we are instead is a slightly evolved brand. We are just adding a narrative to what we do and to how we do it. We are adding a pillar to our brand values and our core values. So we get to now talk about the high quality beers we make, the ingredients that we use through Wild Farmed and through different suppliers that we work with. I'm visiting, for example, in a couple of weeks, the country's first regenerative hop farm, which are growing hops in ways that no one else in the country is. It's really interesting. And building their products into our beers will again add another layer into this slightly evolved brand. The main goal with all of this, therefore, is can we stack our S-curves? What does it look like? What I would say is the first step of this, the history of the S-curve, is regular craft beer. Regular, excellent, good-tasting, high-quality craft beer. We're at the plateau end of that. The next S-curve that we're working on is sustainable craft beer. Just as good, but much lower carbon footprint than current beer. So what's next? The future. Is it sustainable, cheap craft beer? Because making sustainable products is more expensive than making regular products, unless you can innovate the way to bring down the costs. So that will have to be our next innovation as we go forward if we really want to scale up what we're doing in sustainable beer. And after that, it could be loads of different things. It depends on who you talk to. I've talked to people who are looking at all sorts of CBD-laden beers. There's the alt health beers. There's low-calorie beer representatives here. The next S-curve, magic craft beer, We're not sure, but as we continue to innovate our products and as we continue to roll out different kinds of things, we're hoping to keep stacking our S-curves and keep searching for that product USP that will slowly evolve our brand as opposed to revolutionizing it. So that's all I had to say today about that, but I appreciate your time. And cheers. Enjoy your beers.